Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the best professional wrestling podcast from pillar to post, broadcasting live in living color from coast to coast. Petree's Pit. I'm your host, Ray Petree, a columnist for the Sportster and the Augusta Free Press. And I'm joined once again today by my co host, my tag team partner, JDO How's it going, Jordan?
Going all right, man. Going all right.
We have a big show for you guys. We want to discuss a little bit of the WWE. We want to review Revolution in broad strokes and then talk about Dynamite this week because the AEW product is really hot right now. They've really been on a tear since, I would say, early February. Um, and that Revolution show was phenomenal. I mean, almost a perfect show, in my opinion. We watched it together. We both really enjoyed it a lot. A lot of the matches were good to great, and then some of them were, I mean, we're talking match of the year candidates. So we'll get into that. First, I want to start off with the WWE. And particularly, I think generally speaking on the show, we try to maintain a positive attitude towards the wrestling we talk about. We're not grifters, shock jocks like JD from New York or the Bully Rays of the world. We love pro wrestling. And if we didn't enjoy this stuff, we wouldn't review it. That's why we don't talk about TNA or NXT. Um, But we wouldn't have any integrity if we didn't criticize the things that we don't like. And we're recording this on March 16th, Sunday. It's been 15 days since John Cena betrayed Cody Rhodes at the Elimination Chamber. And over the past 2 weeks, neither The Rock nor John Cena have appeared on WWE TV. They haven't been bothered to show up. Travis Scott gave Cody Rhodes a black eye, and the champion's only recourse has been shouting into the void for John Cena to show up. We're less or a little more than a month away from WrestleMania 41. And I know that John Cena's supposed to show up tomorrow night on Monday at Monday Night Raw to confront Cody. But I just don't care anymore. I really don't. Cena and The Rock are this generation's living legends. And it's fun seeing them as special attractions, but this is the main event of WrestleMania. And not just the main event, it's the main event of WrestleMania. It's the most important storyline selling this show to the fans. And the champion, who we've been led to believe is the most dominant champion in all of professional wrestling, just got beaten up by a 47-year-old guy with a bald spot and a rapper. If this were AEW, I feel like the bad faith, bad take vultures would be raising Cain about this. It's been 2 weeks. They haven't been bothered to show up on TV. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not a WWE fan. That's Jordan's forte. I'm just sick of this company being beyond reproach by the nation's biggest wrestling pundits, like Busted Open, like JD from New York, oftentimes by guys like Eric Bischoff or obviously Bruce Pritchard. It's been 2 weeks. This angle hasn't progressed, and I'm not waiting with bated breath. I just don't care anymore. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, well, I think on a previous show when we talked about this about the heel turn, I think I kind of made mention of this that I'll be extremely interested in if the guys actually show up and they actually give some time to this, and I'm able to invest in it by having those guys be face to face. And like you said, Cena hasn't been there, The Rock hasn't been there. Cody's just been going out there and just kind of talking about it. Um, other people in the company have been mentioning it, which is really disappointing that you have this huge moment of John Cena turning into a bad guy, and you follow it up with him not ever showing up, no follow up, and like you said, we're a month out from WrestleMania, so this is when you build these things up, and I know Cena before in interviews talking about being a bad guy has said that I'm going to work less, show up less, things like that. And like, that's fine when he was a regular full-time wrestler. You could do that type of stuff. But now, I mean, he's hardly ever there to begin with. So you have this huge turn. You got to put some time into it. You can't just show up and we'll see how he he looks, how he talks, how whatever on Raw. But yeah, I think it's just been a real big disservice to Cody, and real big disservice to everybody. Everybody there showing up, trying to build to WrestleMania, make this card interesting to the fan base, and yeah, they've kind of wet the bed with it so far.
I prefaced that monologue, that diatribe, if you will, with the fact that Revolution was almost a 10 out of 10 show. I mean, honestly, I will get into this later, but if it weren't for the main event, I think that would have been the perfect pay-per-view. And certainly the best pay-per-view I've seen in a number of years. One of the best pay-per-views I've ever seen, quite frankly. And I'm supposed to wait for 2 weeks across 4 different primetime programs, excluding NXT, for John Cena to answer not for what he's done, but why he did it. After that, I don't care if you don't come back for a few weeks. But right after you strike while the iron's hot in professional wrestling, it's been 2 weeks. I don't care anymore. He's a heel. Okay, I get it. I don't care why. Don't really want to hear why. Not interested. Because you could have done that the Monday night after the Elimination Chamber. You chose not to. Why? I guess his filming schedule. But this is the most important program in WrestleMania 41. This is the selling point for the show. Now I get it's not like the cost of entry is high. It's a Peacock prescription or subscription. But why do I want to see? I mean, we have 4 weeks to build this program at this point. WrestleMania season began in early January. We talked about it. It's the playoffs of the WrestleMania of the WWE season. You've had months now, and the other main event opposite of that is supposedly Jey Uso and Gunter. I don't care about that one either because I saw it on Saturday night's main event right before the Royal Rumble. So this is the one that's supposed to be unique, and the guys aren't there. How do you sell a main event like that?
Yeah, I don't understand their thinking, and I don't know if it's because of how last year went when they pretty much threw everything together that happened in WrestleMania pretty last minute.
Hmm.
I mean, The Rock coming in, the whole controversy with that, Cody and Roman, the whole thing kind of came together pretty quickly, and it was pretty late in the process. So I don't know if they think that that is kind of the model of how they're going to do things now, but it's not the way you build to potentially one of the biggest matches in Mania history. A bad guy, a heel John Cena versus babyface Cody Rhodes. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I also want to say too that I really hate how everybody's talking about this. Like I get obviously kayfabe is dead. We all get that. They pull back the curtain all the time. But when it comes to this, going in the press conference, The Rock just talking about, oh yeah, we decided to turn John Cena heel. Thought it'd be a good idea. Thought it'd be a shocking moment. In Triple H, like, well, if we weren't going to do it now, then when? And then you have freaking ESPN's First Take, Shannon Sharp talking about it. John Cena turning heel. It's just like, come on, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to just blatantly throw it in everybody's face that this is fake or whatever, but just have a little bit of realism to it. You
Yeah.
don't have to just completely bury everything as far as kayfabe goes. So yeah, that between that and Cena not being there, The Rock not being there, I'm actually happy Travis Scott's not there. I don't want to see him again. But yeah, just like we said before, this WrestleMania buildup has not been that great. And this I thought was going to be a potentially, you know, saving grace for them. And for all we know, maybe it still will. It'll still be a big match. It'll still be two big stars going at it, so it'll still be interesting, but not as interesting as it would have been if they would have, like you said, struck while the iron's hot. And I think they missed the boat on that.
Yeah, I mean, but last year WrestleMania, you had Cody winning the Rumble, and then the kickoff show was in early February. So it's not like we were in March and we still hadn't had a meeting between the parties involved. You know, and I think you when you say things like John Cena turned heel, you almost have to when you have no motive behind him doing it available for the fans. Otherwise, why did he turn heel? Why did he align with The Rock? We don't know. So what do we have to talk about other than the shocking headline, John Cena turns heel? I don't know. I agree with your points. And the thing is, when we talk about him turning heel, and you mentioned that this all hinges on them being at the shows, them being involved and being active, I assume that was a given because it's time to go or get off the pot at this point, and they're still not there. And it's just it's mind-boggling to me. I don't know. It's just you have a show in Barcelona, and Cody Rhodes is challenging John Cena to show up just to talk to him. He's got a black eye and a ruptured eardrum, although they deny that, probably because they don't want Travis Scott to look like a jackass. But I don't know. Um,
Yeah, it's
Cross the aisle.
definitely.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
I'll say it's definitely. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And like you said, in the context of having there just been this unbelievable AEW pay-per-view, combining that with the fact that Cena hasn't showed up, yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, I get that WWE's been on a hot streak, um, but yeah, it still does not make them immune from criticism. And yeah, this whole thing is definitely worthy of criticism because, like you said, why did he turn into a bad guy? They're kind of framing it like, oh, we just did it to shock everybody.
It-
Well, that's not interesting to me. I'm supposed to be able to buy into this. And like I said, I get that, kayfabe is dead, but you still got to play into it a little bit.
Mhm.
Don't just come out there and say, oh, we just did it just to shock everybody and have a big moment. But there's no reason why he did it. It makes no sense.
One last thing I want to say about this, now that you've said that, is Triple H, Michael Cole, going out and saying that the WWE isn't wrestling anymore. Sports entertainment is cinema, it's television, it's storytelling. This isn't storytelling. Saying a guy turned heel, it's not a story. Sorry, and if any of the lame brain sub 100 IQ people that watch the WWE think that this is cinema, that this deserves a primetime Emmy, sorry to break it to you, but this is so surface level, so stupid, so low brow. It's not good television. It's not compelling. It's not a compelling story. And it usually never is. Sorry to break it to you. Professional wrestling supposed to supposed to be physical theater, supposed to be a sport in the ring. And we all know it's fake now, so it doesn't need to look real. It's just supposed to be fun to watch. It's nice to cut a good promo, but if no one's in the ring, let alone if no one's even cutting a promo, what does it matter anymore? It's not a story. Anyways, across the aisle, the AEW Revolution pay-per-view. We watched this into the wee hours of the morning last Sunday. This pay-per-view almost ended at midnight. 5-1 criticism. Good God. We got to work on Monday morning. Anyways, my one criticism, generally speaking, the show began with Hangman Adam Page versus MJF. MJF once again jerking the curtain, trying to get out of staying for a whole night. Good on him. He's earned it. And it bookended with the World Championship. Now, matches we're not going to mention. Kazuchika Okada versus Brody King successfully defended his AEW Continental Championship. Mercedes Moné successfully defended her TBS Women's Championship against Momo Watanabe. There was Swerve Strickland and Ricochet to determine the number one contendership. Swerve Strickland won that contest. Great match, by the way. As were the previous two matches I mentioned. The last one, the Hurt Syndicate and the Outrunners for the World Tag Team Championships. The Hurt Syndicate are still champions. Not shocking there. Like I said, though, the show began with Hangman Adam Page and MJF. I thought this was going to be the best match on the card. I was wrong. Um, Jordan, were you underwhelmed by this, or was this, now that we know a little bit more in the proper context, a great way to start this feud?
I think it was a great way to start. I don't think you need to go, uh, have a 5-star classic out there first time out, especially with the other matches that happened on the show. I think it probably would have gotten outshone a little bit. So I think this match, this feud deserves to kind of have its own main event spot on the show. And then you can kind of go out there and put on a 5-star classic. So this was a good way to start it. Didn't do too much. Didn't go out there and spend a half hour fighting each other. It definitely whet the appetite and makes you want to see these guys face each other again.
I love how this pay-per-view escalated. Um, Obviously the ending was it definitely de-escalated, but I love how the show escalated. I love how the show was put together. Um, this was less than 20 minutes, and like you said, they didn't reinvent the wheel. They just went out there, had a good match, told a story. Um, a lot has been said about Hangman Adam Page taking that pile driver on a steel chair outside the ring. I have mixed opinions on that, but uh, Page got back in the ring. He pinned MJF. You have anything to say about the pile driver?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty crazy that you take a move like that and then you just get back up and beat the 10 count and then win the match on top of it.
Mhm.
I just, to me, I don't know. It's hard with AEW because they do that all the time. I mean, you see these guys, you know, and gals beat the hell out of each other and things that would kill a normal human being, they kick out of.
Mhm.
So it's tough. On the one hand, some of the things are cool. On the other hand, I think they do it a little too much, and so it's a fine line. But yeah, I thought if you're gonna do a spot like that, then it kind of should be the end of it.
Mhm.
Like hit him with it. He can't answer the 10 count, and then you move on later on. Uh, but yeah, it was a crazy, crazy move regardless.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I think, 50 years ago, the O'Connor roll was a finishing move, and now I wouldn't even call that a transitional move. It's just something that people do in passing. So I understand things change with time. Pile driver's never been like a killing move in AEW. I mean, Adam Page's finishing move, one of them is a over the shoulder pile driver, and he uses that multiple times on people at times. So, moving on. We have really the first in a series of, like I said, match of the year candidates. Timeless Tony Storm versus Mariah May. This was billed as the Hollywood ending of their almost, year and 2 month long saga now. This is a Falls Count Anywhere match. Also, no disqualification. A lot of foreign objects were used, including glass, to great effect. I guess let's just throw the shock value out there. Was this the best match in American women's wrestling history that you've at least ever seen?
I mean, it's definitely up there. As far as it not there's not a lot of matches where two women have gone out there and just absolutely beaten the hell out of each other like Tony Storm and Mariah May did. Like you said, using glass, using every weapon imaginable. Both of them bleeding buckets, which you don't really see women's wrestlers do. You'll never see it in WWE. Uh, and AEW obviously has never been shy about letting uh, women do this. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely up there. It was a crazy match. I was hooked into it from the start all the way through to the end. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed their match at Grand Slam, but it was much more tame than this. Dave Meltzer gave this 5 stars. It's the first women's match outside of Japan that's ever happened. Uh, Now on our scale, 4.5 is like a genuine match of the year candidate. Um, Jordan gave it a 4.5, I believe. I gave it 4 3/4, which is to me near perfect. I thought it was a near perfect match. And by near perfect, I mean almost as good as anything I've ever seen. 5-star match to me is the best of the best. Something that I would consider maybe the best match ever. And to the point of this show, that was the highest rating I'd ever given while reviewing AEW pay-per-views or shows for the Augusta Free Press. Every week I do the reviews and I rate the matches on a 5-star scale. 4 3/4, highest rating I've ever given out. So keep that in mind. Uh, I thought this was incredible. The next match was for the International Championship, the champion Konosuke Takeshita defending his title against Kenny Omega. This to me felt like a heavyweight title match in the main event of a Tokyo Dome show. This was, I mean, it built towards a climactic finish. Konosuke Takeshita, I mean, yet again proving that he is in the ring, maybe the most talented young rising star in the world. And I say rising star, I mean, he's already a star, but it just keeps getting better. For Kenny Omega, I mean, yeah, he had that great match against Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty, but if you're an American wrestling fan and you didn't watch that show, it's not on your radar. Was this a statement making match for Kenny Omega in your opinion, Jordan? That he's still as good as anyone is in the world.
Uh, I mean, you could say that. I mean, I thought and I guess like you said, if people didn't watch the Gabe Kidd match, they wouldn't know. But um, yeah, I mean, as far as him in a big time match for a title, uh, yeah, it definitely reinforces the idea that he's one of the best in the business today. And Takeshita also going out there and putting on a match like that against Kenny Omega is it was definitely great for him too. So overall, it was just a great match for both guys.
Kenny Omega winning that match. Um, he's now the international champion. We'll talk about that a little later. But um, how do you feel, just generally speaking, how do you feel about Kenny Omega having a mid-card title?
I think it's great for the title. You know, in AEW for a long time, it seemed like the TNT title was that that secondary title for that mid card type of title, and it's now pretty much meaningless at this point. You know, Daniel Garcia's held it. No one's really ever cared since he won it. And before him, Jack Perry held it, which even less people cared about. But you look at the international title, like you think about the guys who have held it over the last few reigns. I mean, Ospreay, MJF, Takeshita, now Omega.
Mhm.
That's some of your biggest stars in the company. So if you want to really bring prestige to a title, really bring importance to it, you have the biggest names win it. Uh, and I think I think it's great for that title, and it gives people another championship to go after, not always having to be the world title. Um, so I think it was great to have him win it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked last week, the rumor and innuendo is that they're debating whether or not they should unify the international, the continental championships. I think as an attraction at All In Texas, Omega versus Okada is as big as a mid-card match as you can get. Um, because those two have main evented the Tokyo Dome in front of 40,000 people. Um, so that's, I mean, just that promise is exciting. And maybe that's not what's going to happen, but having Kenny Omega hold that title, like you said, including the last few people who've held it, brings prestige, brings interest, and certainly will result in some great matches. Um, and by the way, Dave Meltzer gave that a 5-star match, of course. I think both of us agreed it is about 4.5 stars, which, like I said, match of the year candidate. I mean, normally speaking, if this were any different show, this would have been match of the night
Yeah.
on 9 out of 10 shows. The match after that, lower the steel cage. We have Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. The end of this trilogy these guys have been on since I guess late October when Kyle Fletcher betrayed him at Wrestle Dream. Kyle Fletcher won at Full Gear. Ospreay won at World's End. Now here we are. I don't throw this around lightly, like I said. This isn't the Meltzer scale. To us, a 5-star match is perfect. It's as good as anything we've ever seen. And over the course of this match, you and I both looked at each other and said, "By God, is this a 5-star match?" The match before the match even began, both guys scaled the cage. They're at the top, face to face, on opposite sides, locking eyes. They descend down in the cage and just pure insanity. Foreign objects, a lot of blood, a little Spanish fly off the top of the cage. Very physical, very violent, very personal. Was this a 5-star match in your opinion, Jordan?
Yeah, I think you could definitely classify it as a 5-star match. I mean, these guys were just beating the hell out of each other, and then that freaking them both off the top of the cage, the Spanish Fly was just insane. Uh, and it's what you want the third match in the trilogy to be. Same thing with Toni Storm and Mariah May. You want it to be these two have faced each other twice before, and they're 1-1, and the last match is going to be I want to beat you thoroughly, beat you down, break you, whatever. And that match was great, like we said, and this match was unbelievable. And I mean, their other two matches were just incredible, also, and this one was no exception. So yeah, just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I don't mean to like engage in any exaggeration, but I think we have to start talking about this as one of the all-time great trilogy of matches. Seriously, I think we do because the match at Full Gear was great. The match at World's End in the semifinals of the Continental Classic was great, and this was historic. I mean, this is like I'm sorry, but it's we're in March, and I'm already saying I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is probably going to be the match of the year. Anything else after this is trying to hit this bar of action, of selling, of violence, of catharsis. That this is the end of the story between these two, at least for now. I'm sure these guys, this is not the end for these two. They will clash over world championships and many, many more times to come, I'm sure. But for this trilogy, to end the story this way is incredible. And Kyle Fletcher, 26 years old, this young man. Jordan and I both feel young, and he's younger than us. And I mean, who's doing it like this guy?
He's yeah, he's got the whole package, man. He's got the look, the wrestling ability. The promos are getting better.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, like this feud with Ospreay has really put him in the spotlight as being a main eventer, a future main eventer, probably a future world champion somewhere in there. But yeah, just every time he's out there, if you can go out there and have a tremendous match, no matter who you're facing, you're already at a certain level, and he's definitely there.
The third member of the Petree's Pit crew is my lovely girlfriend Summer, who edits these videos. She didn't get the chance to watch this match with us. She had to go to bed early for a work engagement the next day. Um, but the next day we rewatched this match, and Summer's not often blown away by a match. This one blew her away, as it did us, and I'm sure over 100,000 plus people who watched this pay-per-view. So, or who bought the pay-per-view. I'm sure more people watched it than that. But anyways, so that was the second to last match. And the main event was John Moxley defending his AEW World Heavyweight Championship against the rated R superstar Adam Copeland. Now, this show has, I think, unfortunately, by the bad faith, bad take vultures that descend on AEW, has kind of this has become in a lot of people's mind a microcosm of the show, which is unfortunate because yeah, it wasn't a great main event, but everything else was awesome. And honestly, I if the second to last match is Ospreay and Fletcher and the crowd just lost it at that match and they've lost it previous times, I don't really care if they don't care about this main event because they've been at this show for 5 hours at this point between the pre-show and the main card, and the crowd wasn't really into it. Not surprising. John Moxley defending his title against a 51-year-old man whose neck is in questionable shape perpetually. And throw in the fact that Christian Cage, who's had this Casino Gauntlet contract for like 8 months now, cashed it in. Christian Cage, also a 51-year-old man who wrestles in a turtleneck. Um, Made this triple threat match. Very sports entertaining. I don't know if I was sports entertained, but Jordan, what did you think about this main event?
Um, I thought it was. I mean, it was what it was, I guess. I mean, to be fair to them, you're not going to be able to top the previous match. Like we just said, we just talked about. I mean, it was, a 5-star match, and this one comes on afterwards, and it's like you have John Moxley, who, and both of us have talked about that we don't like. This whole Death Riders thing has not been great. It's been universally panned by pretty much everybody. Um, and yeah, him defending against Adam Copeland, while he obviously has, the I guess the name recognition, he's got that cachet of being a former world champion, a legend in the wrestling business. I don't want to see him wrestling for the world title against John Moxley. I would have rather the world title have been involved in one of the other matches on the show, and I think it's an example of a bigger issue that they have right now with John Moxley and how this whole thing has just not worked. And you're pretty much holding the world title hostage with him. Uh, and I don't know who's going to dethrone him, but I think as soon as he does, it will immediately make the world title picture better. Because right now, I mean, you think about the other people on the show. I mean, Hangman Page, MJF, those guys should be wrestling for the world title. Swerve Strickland should be wrestling for the world title. Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher should be wrestling for the world title. All those guys should be involved in the world title picture. And they're not right now because Moxley's holding it and he's feuding with Adam Copeland.
Mhm.
So it's really doing a disservice to the main event picture in AEW. Uh, and I mean, this match, after the Ospreay Fletcher match, I wasn't that interested in this. Um, I mean, Christian Cage coming in, it was pretty much just kind of comedy at that point.
Mhm.
Here comes Christian, cashes in the Casino Gauntlet contract, and then he immediately gets choked out by John Moxley, and that's it. So I think you and I were both just laughing about it at this point because it was just so absurd. Uh, and yeah, it wasn't good. It was a bad way to end a pay-per-view, and it reminds me of uh, back when at WrestleMania you had The Rock and Hogan on, and then immediately after that you had Jericho and Triple H for the world title.
Mhm.
No one even remembers that Jericho and Triple H happened on that WrestleMania
Yeah.
because Rock and Hogan preceded it. And obviously, this is not on that large of a scale, but it's still the same type of uh, same type of issue where you have this tremendous match beforehand, and you have the main event on there because it's so. I mean, if the world title wasn't involved in this would have been like probably second match on the show.
Yeah.
But because it was the world title match, they had it on main event, and it was not worthy of a main event.
Yeah, like you said, Christian Cage gets in the match, tries to cleverly pin Adam Copeland while he's getting choked out, and then he just got choked out. He didn't tap out, which kudos to him, I guess. But he got choked out pretty quickly, so I don't know if that's better. Yeah, Christian looked like a dope, which he's, like I said, a 51-year-old man. Adam Copeland didn't get pinned, which some people are not happy about because he still hasn't been pinned to my knowledge in AEW. But he didn't win the match. He's not the world champion. Um, After the match, John Moxley is leaving the ring, which honestly I felt bad for John because he got jumped. Not only did he had to fight off both Copeland and Christian Cage, but Jay White tried to hit him with a briefcase. And yeah, he had Wheeler Yuta's help, but what does that really mean? That's not much. It's not like that's going to change the tide of most battles. So yeah, I felt bad, and he's leaving the ring, and he's like, well, "I just got jumped. Why are you people not cheering for me?"
Yeah,
Like, we were joking, like, God, he looks like a baby face right now. He just got attacked by three people and he walked out
yeah,
with the title.
yeah.
Um, and he's going through the tunnel to leave to go get in his Dodge Ram. And Prince Nana meets him and he's pointing up. And what are you doing? And obviously, Swerve Strickland perched up on a railing above the tunnel, dives down with the Swerve Stomp. The Crypto.com arena, which is a ridiculous name for an arena, by the way. I hate the Lakers. Celtics for life. The stupid fans in Los Angeles just chanting whose house, Swerve's house. That leads us to Dynasty. It'll be Swerve Strickland versus the AEW World Champion. Now, let's go to Dynamite this week. I guess I'll skip the beginning. We'll stay with the main event scene. It was announced that next week in Omaha, Nebraska, Jon Moxley will be defending his title in a street fight against Adam Copeland because Adam Copeland didn't get pinned. He feels like he's owed another shot at this. Just before we continue, how do you feel about that, Jordan?
I mean, we just talked about how this match sucked before. Why do we need to see it again?
Mm.
I don't. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a street fight, so obviously they're probably going to beat the crap out of each other. So maybe that'll make it better. But yeah, I don't want to see this again. I don't need to see it again. Like I get they were trying to be clever by having Copeland not get pinned by Moxley, but it's just we don't need to see this again. Like you want to have Swerve face whoever, have Swerve face Moxley. If that's what you want to do. But we don't need to have another match between these two. I mean, if you have a match and it wasn't good, maybe they thought it was good, but it wasn't. Having it again and just adding a street fight into it isn't. I don't see the point. And if you're Moxley, it's like, why would you want to face him again? Like yeah, you can say, "Oh, I didn't actually beat him," but I mean, like you said, three people attacked him,
Mhm.
and he still retained the title. So it's like, if you're Moxley, you're like, well, you had a bunch of people helping you and are getting involved in the match, and I still won. So, your shot is done as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I don't see the point. But I guess it's another match you can have on the card. Street fight. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of blood, a lot of violence, and we'll see how it goes.
How much do you think, how much of this is trying to mitigate the criticism that Copeland hasn't been pinned and he might be being protected too much?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, well, he's lost in AEW before, hasn't he? Didn't Christian beat him for the TNT title or
Mm,
cashed in Luchasaurus' shot and
ye-
retained it? I mean, he technically got pinned. He got beat one, two,
ye-
three, even though obviously there was shenanigans.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I mean, he's
But
not.
yeah, to your overall point, yeah, in this context, uh, I don't know. I mean, I think you could have easily solved that by just having him lose. Like, just have him get pinned, have
Yeah.
Moxley pin him. I mean, the match is going to be flat no matter what. So just have him get beat in the middle of the ring, one, two, three, and be done with it. And then you don't have to worry about it. But now you're like, oh, he didn't get pinned. So now we're going to have him face him in a street fight. And, I mean, is it even going to help? Because I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of interference in this match. So between whoever, if the Death Riders come back, get involved, if Jay White gets involved.
That's a great
Uh,
segue, Jordan.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be something that's going to happen. So is it really going to help their case if Adam Copeland gets pinned, but it takes World War III in order for it to happen?
Jay White cut a promo on Dynamite. Second half of the promo. We'll talk about the first half later. But second half of the promo, Jay White promises that he did not betray Adam Copeland on purpose. Uh, by the way, when Jay White tried to hit John Moxley with a briefcase, he missed and he hit Adam Copeland, which sounded, and looked very real, might I add. Looked like he really clocked Adam Copeland. Jordan was very worried about the Rated R Superstars uh,
Yeah, that was rough.
gold. Yeah, Jay White says he will be in Adam Copeland's corner and he will make sure that there is a new AEW World Champion. That was the second part of the promo. I'm going to talk about the third part as well later, but So we know Jay White's going to be involved somehow. Do you think he's going to cost Adam Copeland the championship inadvertently, or do you think he's going to outright betray him on this show?
I mean, I figure he's probably going to outright betray him. I mean, I don't know why, if you're Adam Cole, why would you trust Jay White? Like, he's been a bad guy the entire time he's been in AEW, pretty much.
Well, he hasn't. They haven't interacted. He hasn't been there for a long time. Jordan. He came back and Jay White was a babyface.
I get, but like, if you're Adam Copeland, like, you hardly know this guy then. So like, you're just like, oh, okay, you'll just help me then. And it doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I mean, I would assume he's probably gonna turn on him, uh, unless they want Jay White to, I don't know, feud with Moxley at some point, and then they might keep him a babyface. But I don't, I don't see why he would want to help Adam Cole. His involvement's really weird. So I don't get what they're doing with it. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine he will probably cost him. Now maybe he'll do it inadvertently, and then you can have room for interpretation. But yeah, something's going to happen a little wonky in that match, I'm sure.
Jordan and I both Gold members, both huge fans of the Switchblade. Um, yeah, we don't care if he's a bad guy. And I don't care if he betrays Adam Copeland. I am happy about the fact that both now CM Punk and Adam Copeland have taken him under their wing. Now both of these guys have affixed themselves to Jay White, which goes to show his quality and his ability in the ring and how much belief they have in him. Um, I don't I I guess yeah, let's just stay on this. Let's ride this out. Because right now the Death Riders, other than Wheeler Yuta, are gone. Um, Adam Copeland thought he had coerced Wheeler into abandoning the Death Riders. That hadn't happened exactly. Um, I think all signs point to Moxley retaining this title and going to Dynasty, facing Swerve Strickland head on Collision last night. Um, Swerve was attacked by John Moxley after cutting a promo, so that seems like that's where we're heading. Um, the Death Riders, like I said, are currently absent, and I think right now Moxley is primed to be overhauled. Not necessarily as the leader of a faction, but as a autonomous champion, a lone wolf, the guy he was the last three times he held the title. Because he never needed help before. And clearly, I mean, yeah, he got Wheeler Yuta's help, but it really didn't amount to much. He still got attacked by three guys and still came out on top. Do you think this can be salvaged? Not necessarily to a point where it's good, but to a point where people care by the time Moxley does lose the title. And I'm not saying it's going to be a dynasty. It could go longer than that, and it probably will go longer than that. I don't think Strickland's going to beat him at dynasty, but do you think we can get to a point where this is entertaining again?
Um, I don't know. It's really hard with Boxley because I don't know, he's just not interesting to me as a champion right now. Uh, and I don't know if it really could be salvaged. Um, maybe if it goes on long enough to where the fans are like desperately wanting him to lose, then yeah, maybe it will add interest into it. Or if you get the right person that the fans really want to see win the title, then maybe that will bring interest too. But I mean, to me, the only thing I could see that really would help it would be like if Darby Allin would be the one that would eventually dethrone him. But I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. So yeah, I don't know. Moxley's really hard to be interested in as a champion. So I don't know if there's really if you really could kind of repackage him and make this interesting.
Will Ospreay cut a promo on Dynamite? Um, because his story with Kyle Fletcher and the Don Callis family has seemingly ended, he's left with nothing other than aspirations of a championship, and not just any championship. He wants the world championship. Last year at Forbidden Door, he was essentially robbed of the title by the Don Callis family, which began this saga that we've been on. And I think now it's a full circle moment. He wants another shot, and he knows that Adam Copeland is facing Moxley next week, and he knows that Swerve Strickland has him at Dynasty. So he's called his shot at Revolution. I mean, I'm sorry, he's called a shot. Good Lord, he's called a shot at All In Texas. He wants to wrestle in the main event against a world champion, whether that be Swerve Strickland, Adam Copeland, or John Moxley. Specifically, he ended the promo by saying that if it is the one true king, John Moxley, that he better watch out because they're going to send an assassin. Now, to me, that promo seems awfully pointed at a potential main event between Ospreay and Moxley. And these guys are no strangers to each other. They've faced each other numerous times in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Will Ospreay, one of the number one haters of John Moxley, he hates his guts, always has. Um, so I ask you this, Jordan, at All In, would you rather see Will Ospreay versus Moxley, Will Ospreay versus Strickland, or not see Will Ospreay on the card at all in the main event?
Uh, I mean, I definitely would like to see him in the main event.
Hmm.
And to me, I think as far as a match, I would prefer to see Osprey face Swerve. But I think for the pure babyface versus heel dynamic and the potential of the fans being really invested in Osprey finally ending the reign of terror that is John Moxley, I think that one overall would be better if Osprey winning the world title, beating Moxley, finally putting that whole Death Riders thing to bed for good.
I think both of us agree that we don't see Strickland beating him at Dynasty, do we? Now, last year, Swerve Strickland won the title at Dynasty. He's trying to make lightning strike twice. What do you think?
I don't know, it's tough. I mean, if you're AEW, if you're Tony Khan, are you listening to the people that are saying that this has been a really bad title reign? And you're like, well, how about I give it to Swerve because whatever you think about Swerve, he's one of their most popular wrestlers. He's the guy who's, I mean, he's obviously been in the promotional stuff for AEW All In Texas, and he's been out there promoting the company. So as far as going into All In, it would seem like Swerve would be the better fit than Moxley. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say.
Um, During Jay White's promo, he began the promo by mocking Will Ospreay. He ended the promo by admitting he was a little frustrated that it was Swerve Strickland who was the number one contender and not Jay White. Um, I like how cohesive this core group of guys is starting to feel because when I think of the next 5 to 10 years of AEW, I think of a handful of names. I think of Darby Allin. I think of MJF, Hangman, Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay. I think of Konosuke Takeshita, and I think of Jay White. If I didn't already say his name. Anyways, I think of that small group of guys who were in their late 20s or early 30s, and all of them feel so close together right now. They all feel inextricably tied together. Obviously, MJF and Hangman are feuding. Konosuke Takeshita is working his way back to a title match of some kind. That's he wants to rise in the rankings. That's what we learned on Dynamite. Jay White just called out both Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. Jay White, it definitely seems like he's turning heel soon. Will Ospreay wants the title. Swerve Strickland wants the title. Obviously, MJF and Hangman both want the title. It just seems like a cohesive group now, and guys who are all inevitably going to meet up in one way, shape, or form. Um, if you had to rank those 7 guys right now, off the top of your head, how would it go? Start with number 7.
Oh gosh, put me on the spot right now. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I would probably. I guess you have to put Darby at the bottom. And it's not that I don't love Darby Allin, uh, because I really do like him a lot, but just the fact that he's never there, and it seems like he has other things he's interested in besides being, a champion in AEW. I think that makes it hard for him. Uh, but I probably have him seven. Um, I'd probably say Takeshita six, just because obviously, like you say, he's working his way towards um, being in that world title picture. He's obviously got the look, he's got the wrestling ability, but I think the language barrier hurts him a little bit. Um, I'd say Swerve next. Uh, like I said, obviously Swerve. Well, I know you're not the biggest fan of Swerve. He's still good, but uh, then after I'd probably put Jay White. Uh,
That now that's a I feel like that's definitely a hot take. Jay White over Swerve is that's probably a hot take for sure.
I mean maybe, but no, that's what I think it is. And then oh man, it's tough right now. These last three are really tough.
They are really tough.
I would say I'll go. I'll put MJF three, and then I'll put Hangman two and Ospreay at one.
And
As things are right now, and obviously with the top three, I'm sure you could rank those guys any order of the top three.
yeah,
Uh, but right now, I think with the way things are trending, I think Ospreay's is the hotter ticket right now as a guy who's probably going to be the next champion. Uh, uh, so yeah, I think that's probably how I would rank it.
that's a strong list. So Darby at seven, six Konosuke Takeshita, five Swerve Strickland, four Switchblade Jay White, three MJF, two Hangman, and number one Will Ospreay. I like that a lot.
Yeah, for
You're
being
right.
put on the spot.
Yeah, to put you on the spot. I mean that top three is like tough to compare. Because they all excel at they're all good at a lot of things, but they all excel at different things. Um, yeah, anyway, so let's start at the beginning of the show. Kenny Omega kicked off Dynamite as the International Championship. Looked great with the title around his waist. And he introduced the AEW International Championship Elimination Tournament. And what this is to decide his challenger at Dynasty. And it was pooling some of the wrestlers from different countries on the roster. There were four first round matches. The winner of those matches will continue on to the semifinals, where they're going to be in a fatal four-way match. The winner of that will challenge Kenny Omega at Dynasty. The winners of the first three matches were, or not the first three, but of the three matches we knew about, were Orange Cassidy, Ricochet, and Mark Davis. The fourth match was between the Beast Mortos and a wild card. And that wild card ended up being Speedball Mike Bailey, who made his debut in AEW. He left TNA at the end of 2024, and we knew that he had signed. I mean, that was all the reports indicated he had, but he was waiting on visa issues because he is from British Columbia, Canada. He and he's had visa issues in the past, which I'm not going to get into, but for a while he was barred from the country. So I think that played into this a lot. He had to get his visa issues worked out, but he's arrived in AEW. He beat the Beast Mortos in a really thrilling match. I mean, Speedball Mike Bailey is a highly physical wrestler. He's got a lot of strike. He's not a very big guy, but he's got a lot of striking ability. He's a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. Uh, and that's a shoot brother. So he does a lot of kicking, a lot of strikes. His finishing move, he called the ultimate weapon, looked great. That like spinning roundhouse kick or like a heel kick, it looked awesome. What'd you think about his debut, Jordan?
I thought it was good. I thought he showed a lot of ability. I think for people who, if they haven't seen Speedball Mike Bailey, which I am one of those, it was the first time I'd ever seen him wrestle, and it was very impressive.
Both you and I, as I mentioned before, don't watch TNA anymore. Don't really care to. In TNA, He was the X Division champion. He had a number of notable matches against guys like Josh Alexander and Will Ospreay at a time, and he's had great matches in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling and great matches in PWG a long time ago. He's been in the game for a little while. Like I said, Speedball Mike Bailey advanced, Ricochet advanced, Mark Davis, Orange Cassidy, all going to be in this Fatal Four Way. What do you think about the contestants in this Fatal Four Way, Jordan?
Uh, I mean, I'm not thrilled about it. Uh, obviously Speedball is interesting because he just got there. But everybody else, I mean, Orange Cassidy, he's been in the international title picture forever. So, do we really want to go back to that again? Ricochet has obviously he's been feuding with Swerve. He's been really changing his character and has been more interesting than I think he's been in his career so far. And then Mark Davis, I don't really know why he's in this,
Because he's Australian.
but yeah, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It's not that interesting to me. Like I don't. I mean, anybody against Omega will be good because Omega's one of the best. But as far as like name recognition, I don't. None of these guys really inspire me at all.
On one hand, I don't think Speedball's going to win this. Not that I think he's going to get pinned. I think that's obviously the benefit of having a Fatal Four Way. I'd like to see Ricochet advance, and I think he could not only have a really great match with Omega, obviously, because they're both insanely talented performers, but Ricochet's become a really great heel, and I think he would be able to juxtapose Omega well. Um, but Mark Davis, obviously, a member of the Don Callis family, could continue that. I mean, I hope they don't, but he could continue that story with Omega that the Don Callis family wants to exact their revenge on Omega. At the same time, this also feels like I like how much gravitas they gave this tournament. They prefaced the show with it that this is important for the programming over the next few weeks, and I think Kenny Omega did a good job of that. I like that they put that attention to this, but I feel like we're biding our time until that Okada match at All In, and they have quite a few pay-per-views until then. Um, I think for a turnaround, I mean, listen, the Dynasty's at the beginning of April, so very quick turnaround this next pay-per-view, matter of weeks. So they had to do something quick. Um, I think this was savvy, but you know, I wouldn't mind seeing any of these guys versus Omega, like you said. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Omega's going to make this good regardless. It is a mid-card match, but you know. Um, last part of the Dynamite conversation we're going to have is Toni Storm and Megan Bayne. Toni Storm came out, gave a sort of issued another challenge to the women's division. This story with Mariah Mace finally ended, and it was a phenomenal story. One of the best feuds in AEW history. You could argue maybe the best. Um, and she's ready to face all comers. Now she's going to accept all challengers. She wants to defend this title frequently and fervently. And she got done with her promo and she was attacked by Megan Bayne. It certainly looks like these two are angling towards a match at a pay-per-view. I don't know if that's a dynasty because Megan Bayne's also actively feuding with Thunder Rosa and Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander. But, all signs point to, Megan Bayne's going to wrestle Chris Statlander this week in Omaha. And, she beat her a few weeks ago. Seems like she's going to beat her again. She's rising in the rankings at an alarming rate. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts on Megan Bayne so far in AEW?
Well, they've like you said, they've made her look like a freaking monster. I mean, she's beat up Toni Storm. She beat up Thunder Rosa. She's beaten up Statlander, Willow. Like she beat all them up in one night, pretty much. And yeah, they've made her look like a dominant force and somebody that would be a tough challenge for Toni Storm. Um, as like a David versus Goliath type of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as the way they've built up Megan Bayne, I mean, they've done a really good job of making her look like just this unbelievable challenge that Toni Storm is going to have to face, and potentially could be, future women's world champion.
Um, I throw this out there just for posterity. Timeless Tony Storm just finished promoting the Queen of the Ring film. Queen of the Ring, directed by the son of the director of Rocky and The Karate Kid. Um, this is giving me like Rocky Balboa versus Clubber Lang or Ivan Drago vibes. Because Megan Bayne, I mean, they've said it. Multiple people have said it multiple times. Megan Bayne looks like she was created in the lab. She's 6'1". She's incredibly strong. She uses an F5 as her finisher. Obviously, it's not called the F5, but anyways, a highly physical, imposing figure, someone who looks like a colossus. And I don't think they're going to have her beat all these people just to lose to Toni Storm. I really don't. I think while it would be shocking, it would definitely be surprising. If these two do face a dynasty, it's hard to believe Toni Storm's going to win that clean. Is that fair to say, or am I like maybe sipping on the Kool-Aid a little too much?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I don't think it would do Megan Bayne any benefit to just get beat flat by Toni Storm. Even though Toni Storm obviously has the cachet, so I mean, losing to her wouldn't be terrible. But the way they built her up so far, I don't. I think it would be better if you're going to have Megan Bayne lose to have there be like a lot of interference, a lot of shenanigans that would cause her to lose instead of just getting beat flat.
And maybe we're building towards a fatal four-way of some kind. Obviously, like I said, Thunder Rosa's been involved in this. Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale. It might not just be Megan Bayne. Very common for Tony Khan to, on a quick turnaround, make a fatal four-way match, especially in the women's division, because he's got so many women to book, and just because of the way that they book the women's division, not a lot of spots to book him. So, um, it's time will tell. We have a few weeks until we iron out the details of Dynasty. But I'm excited, and I like how they've been booking Megan Bayne. I feel like she's gotten the attention that Camille desperately needed and never received. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe Tony Khan's learning from his mistakes, which is good to see. I'm excited by that. The most important development of Dynamite, the most exciting thing, and the thing I'm most interested in hearing your thoughts on, because we didn't get to watch Dynamite together this week, are MJF being approached by MVP with an offer to join the Hurt Syndicate. Earlier in the show, we saw a backstage interview from shortly after Revolution, the Hurt Syndicate's match against the Outrunners, where MVP urged Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin to take the week off, enjoy the beach, go to Vegas, relax a little bit. Don't worry about Dynamite this week. We're led to believe they won't be at Dynamite. Well, MJF is cutting a little promo about Hangman Adam Page, um, about how he feels about the match and the outcome, and none other than MVP interrupts him. Turns out these guys are friends. He's known MJF for a long time, since MJF was a young man. And MVP giving him an offer that's difficult to refuse. What did you think about this, Jordan?
I mean, I thought it was interesting.
I think you're muted, my man.
Sorry. It's definitely interesting that you know MJF. He doesn't really seem like the type of person that MVP would approach
Wait,
for this type of offer.
wait. He's not.
That's not what I'm talking about. Um,
Okay, all right.
Although it's funny. He's like the never mind. It's
Anyway,
yeah, it's interesting that because I don't know how they would approach that. Like if MJF were to join, the Hurt Syndicate, it would be it would be really kind of a weird fit, I think, because you have MVP as the mouthpiece, and MJF doesn't really need a mouthpiece. He's obviously one of the best talkers in AEW. So uh, him alongside Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin would be a really imposing force, obviously. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. So it was a weird interaction. And two, if you have a situation where MJF he refuses to join them, then are you trying to make MJF a babyface again, or are you trying to have the Hurt Syndicate be more heelish? I don't really know. So it's kind of I'm interested to see where it goes. But it was not an interaction that I expected.
Jordan's dying over here. Jordan under the weather. Jordan struggling.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry about that.
this is his flu game. No. In all seriousness, it is an interesting proposition because MJF is so good on his own. And listen, he's not a stranger to a faction. He had the Pinnacle. He was before that a member of the Inner Circle. And then after that, he briefly had the services of the Firm, which is a often forgotten faction in AEW that died very quickly. Um, and I mean, hey, Ric Flair had a manager. He had multiple managers, and he's probably one of the best. I mean, arguably, he's easily one of the best talkers ever. Uh, so it's not abnormal for a guy of MJF's caliber to have a manager or mouthpiece. Nick Bockwinkel had a manager, and he's one of the greatest talkers ever. So, gosh, I just know that you're a huge Hurt Syndicate fan, and obviously, and I am too. I'm not saying I'm not, but we're both huge Hurt Syndicate fans. We're both big MJF fans. Um, and the potential of these two parties joining together, and imagine MJF leading the Hurt Syndicate with MVP as the mouthpiece and a tag team like Benjamin and Lashley. We're talking Four Horsemen-esque. And then maybe you get that fourth member, the fourth wrestler. Not that you need that, but maybe, possibly. Um, Now, like you said, the flip side of that coin is, well, if he declines their offer, and listen, MVP so far has not made an offer twice. And if you don't respond quickly, you're usually met with the boot of Benjamin and Lashley. So either he makes an enemy of them or he becomes their ally. And at the same time, there's this Hangman feud, which clearly isn't over yet. Clearly not. These guys, there's more to come. Do you think this overcomplicates this feud between MJF and Hangman? Do you think they have something magical here and they're throwing in an element that they don't need?
Uh, I mean, I don't think they don't need the Hurt Syndicate to make it interesting. Um, as they clearly showed in the build up to their first match. I don't think that you need to have the Hurt Syndicate help MJF versus Hangman. Uh, Although I guess maybe on the one hand you could say, well, maybe MJF feels like he needs them in order to beat Hangman because he did everything you could possibly do to a human being to kill them,
Mhm.
and he still lost. So it could be a situation where he's kind of like, I'm desperate, I need their help, so I'm gonna take their offer, and they can help me beat Adam Page, and go from there and see where that goes. But I mean, they don't need it. I think they can make it interesting without them. They're both really good talkers, like we've seen them, and they cut their promos back and forth before. Um, so yeah, I don't. As far as overcomplicating it, I think if you are not careful, you could. I think you could clutter it up because I think the Hurt Syndicate can stand on their own. They don't need to have to get involved in other people's business. Uh, but yeah, it's if you're not careful with it, it could definitely make it complicated.
And listen, I definitely tend to think. I believe that MVP and MJF are not going to overbook this. They're not going to overcomplicate this. I trust both of their intuitions, and I trust Hangman Page's intuitions. Um, I think I think this is destined to succeed. Maybe not. They might not maximize the potential it might have. I mean, maybe that's possible, but I think this is still going to be great stuff. I, this just it was so out of left field, and sometimes Jim Ross often says it's okay to do what's expected. In fact, it's better than okay. Sometimes it's great because that means that you've successfully built it to something that built towards something that the fans are excited to see, right? That's kind of the goal of wrestling. But sometimes you get something that's so exciting, but you never expected it. It's not something you ever even considered. And this is that. And I'm hesitant to really to invest myself in this because I don't know what's going to happen, but I love it right now. I love the idea of MJF being in the Hurt Syndicate. Um, or I love the idea of down the road him having to face Bobby Lashley, which also would be pretty exciting. I still this match, or this feud between MJF and Hangman Page, very much feels like the winner will go on to compete for the championship immediately. Like, I understand that Swerve is the number one contender, and he might be the champion after Dynasty, and I understand that Will Ospreay wants his shot at All In, but I don't expect this feud to end until Double or Nothing, and then the next pay-per-view is All In, and I feel like these guys have to be in the main event of that show, one of them, and I feel like that's what they're building towards. So I just all around, I'm very interested to see where this goes. Um, but man, dude, I just was really taken aback by this in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Uh, it's definitely a testament to how AEW will just, I mean, they'll throw all kinds of different things against the wall and see what sticks. And it's one of my biggest criticisms of WWE is that they don't do things differently. They do the same thing over and over again. So I give AEW a lot of credit for having different factions, different people interact, and seeing where it goes. And MJF and the Hurt Syndicate would definitely be interesting and definitely unexpected as far as an alliance would go. So it's definitely interesting to see what happens going forward.
And for I guess the last thing I have to say about this is for MJF at 28 or 29 years old, he's at an inflection point in his career where for a long time he was the fastest rising star in professional wrestling and the generational talent. And he's going to start the bidding war of 2024. And then he became the champion and he became the longest reigning champion. And MVP very poignantly said the operant phrase there is was. He was a champion. But now that he's not the champion, he's not the fastest rising star in wrestling anymore because he's a star and he is who he is and he's already accomplished a great deal. So he's a made man. And I feel like he has not approached that with as much grace as he has at different points in his career. And for him, that's different than it is for most people because I feel like him at this point in his career, he's still better than 95% of the wrestlers in the world, but he just doesn't seem as exciting as he used to. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think he's just been kind of lost in the shuffle almost. Like after his whole program with Adam Cole kind of went down in flames, and it really hurt him.
Yeah.
Like he was the champion, he was the villain, the devil, and then he teams up with Adam Cole in like a comedy act, and it really brought him down a few pegs. And he's never really been able to regain that momentum that he had when he first won the title. Uh, so yeah, I think he definitely doesn't really have a direction, and it'll maybe this is the way he gets it back, joining up with the Hurt Syndicate, who are obviously extremely popular. a dominant force. Um, and obviously, like MVP said, where the Hurt Syndicate goes, titles follow. And maybe this is the way that MJF gets back into that title picture, and maybe rights the ship for him. Uh, so yeah, it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, I, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this might be the way to realign MJF and put him back on track to where he was before. Because I do think abruptly switching from babyface to heel last June, I think affected him a lot. I think I just think his character's been a little all over the place and his goals and his motivations, and I think this is maybe a way to realign him. But the last thing we're going to talk about today is uh, the vignette that we all believe to be Ray Phoenix. Why don't you talk about that, Jordan?
Yeah, basically it was on SmackDown. They had a vignette shown that it was obviously it was a luchador, someone in a mask, and if it's not Ray Phoenix, I don't know who else it would be, but I'm pretty sure it's Ray Phoenix, and it's teasing that he's going to be on SmackDown, which is interesting because Penta's on Raw, so it appears that they are going to keep them separate at the moment, maybe team them up down the line. Uh, but that's what it appears right now. And then there was another vignette I think that people were speculating might be Aleister Black, which I didn't see that one, but I remember heard people talking about it that that's who it appeared to be. So yeah, two more guys showing up in WWE who probably won't do anything significant. Uh, couple guys in the shuffle.
Yeah, Ray Phoenix going to the opposite brand of Penta. I'm a little surprised that he's not going straight to NXT because he's younger than Penta. But with that said, when these guys are supposed to leave, I think we all expected them to go as a tag team. And Penta's stardom is just undeniable. His aura, as the kids say, is palpable. I mean, the guy he's got the great entrance, he's got the great look. Obviously, we know what he can do in the ring. And the fans have really taken to him in a big, big way. And I think Phoenix stands to lose a lot of ground in that because he's not quite as striking looking as Ray Phoenix. I mean, as Penta is. And I think Ray is a better wrestler. I think Phoenix is definitely a better wrestler, and he's younger, so he's got more upside, I suppose. But at this point, how do you put them in a tag team how do you just rip Penta for what he's been doing and put him in a tag team when he's looks like one of the future mid-card stars of this show? And Penta's, yeah, I guess he's in his early 40s, but he still wrestles like he's so young, right?
Yeah, I mean he's obviously still got the ability. He doesn't look like an older wrestler. He wrestles like a young guy, and it's funny that it's almost like the Ray Phoenix being held back in AEW really created the star that Penta is now. Because I'm sure if they had come in at the same time, they would have been a tag team. That was obviously the plan.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, Ray Phoenix coming and showing up on SmackDown, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I would assume eventually, somewhere down the line, that they'll have them be a tag team because they are really good as tag team wrestlers. Their tag team division desperately needs a shot in the arm, and I think that the Lucha Brothers would definitely be that. But yeah, like you said, it's hard right now because Penta's so popular. He's involved in a lot of things. He looks like he's going to be a mid card champion at some point, whether that's Intercontinental, United States champion, which is crazy when you think about when he first came in. I know you and I talked about it. We're like, well, he's never going to be an Intercontinental champion. He's never going to be a U.S. champion, so he'll just be in a tag team. But I mean, now I can't see him not be a champion as much as he's been built up. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I hope Ray Phoenix is able to come in and succeed. and he's not just kind of thrown into the mix with the other um, Mexican wrestlers. Uh, but yeah, it'll I don't want to see him be in like in the LWO or anything like that. Like just you gotta let some of these guys stand on their own.
Yeah, Triple H has a problem with the ethnic factions. There's no doubt about that. He's not beating the racist allegations. So hopefully he doesn't engage in any of that. But Ray Phoenix, 34 years old, a serious talent, really one of the best luchadors in wrestling today, and that whether he was an international champion for a reason in AEW because that's how good he is in the ring. And let's not, I mean, the Lucha Brothers, not just a good tag team, they're arguably the best tag team in the world. Certainly one of the most highly decorated tag teams in wrestling today. They've been AAA tag team champions, they've been TNA tag team champions, they've been AEW tag team champions. I have no reason to believe that one day they will not capture a WWE tag team championship, but like you said, none of us expected Penta to become such a huge single star. And here he is, we think he's going to be an intercontinental champion one day, maybe, so I think Ray Phoenix can reach similar heights. I think he's going to need a little bit more guidance, but I just think it's a matter of time. To your point about Aleister Black, who I think it was a number 4 in the vignette they showed,
Yeah,
probably is Aleister. And I think I think he's destined for disappointment because he was on the main roster once and it didn't work out for a reason, you know?
yeah. I mean, I guess to be fair, he was on the main roster with Vince in charge, and now Triple H is. And I mean, from what I can remember, I mean, he was a pretty big deal on NXT when Triple H was in charge of it. So there's a possibility that maybe Triple H tries to push him pretty hard and see what they can get out of him. But yeah, I don't. It's hard for me right now to envision him being in any kind of like title picture, like any like a world champion or anything like that. Um, but it's kind of hard. Like sometimes these guys come over and they're big stars, and other times they come over and they're disappointing. So it's tough to say. You kind of got to wait and see how they book them, like immediately when they get there. Like with Penta, like we just talked about when he came in. I mean, they booked him like a superstar, and I think that helped him a lot turn into a superstar. So if they're booked right, then you could really make a guy into a potential world championship contender. But it's tough to say.
Black is apparently 39 years old. And like you said, it's hard to envision where he's going to slot in because there's so many great wrestlers right now. And then that begs the question, well, okay, maybe he's not going to be in the, upper mid card right now, but maybe in 5 years, but 5 years from now, he'll be 45. I find that hard to believe as well. I don't know. He's in a weird
Yeah,
spot. I don't know.
yeah.
But like you
Oh,
said, Penta surprised us.
yeah. Although WWE they like their 40-year-old superstars. Got LA Knight, Damian Priest. They're in their 40s. So
Yeah, but they're 41 or 42, where I mean, 45 is that's a different ball game. That's Chris Jericho in his last
well,
WWE.
I'm saying like if they bring him in and they immediately push him to the moon, I guess for lack of a better phrase. If they try to do that, then yeah, I mean um you might be able to have something there. And also he was there before. So, you're gonna have the recognition of him having been there before from the fans.
Yeah.
Um and there's also the aspect of there's a lot more, I think, WWE fans that are aware of AEW wrestlers than like I originally thought there would be. So there's a potential for that people know who he is. They know where he was. He was over there, and now he's coming back, and so it's got potential. I'll give it that. There's potential there if they do it right, and he's engaged. Now, obviously, if he makes this difficult, like it sounds like he did in AEW when he left, then you're kind of dead in the water at that point.
Well, I mean, when he was in WWE, the rumor is that he got in a backstage fight with Kevin Owens.
Yeah,
Um, so it's not like he's just been just a pleasant guy to work with anywhere, everywhere or anything
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. It's not like the AEW is the exception to the rule. But what I am interested to see is a lot of WWE guys that come from AEW and girls just straight up take their presentation, their name, and maybe even their theme song and take it back to WWE. When he was in NXT and on the main roster, he was presented differently than he was in AEW. More of a leather kind of metal music loving guy. Whereas in AEW, he was more supernatural, more acolyte of the devil kind of thing. I wonder if he's going to look more like that than he did when he was in NXT Black and Gold. I'm interested to see that, just out of curiosity.
yeah.
Um, well, that does it for our show this week. It was a little longer than we expected, but I think a great conversation about a myriad of things. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and leave us a comment whether you agreed or disagreed with anything we said. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer on next week's show, feel free to ask them. We love doing that every week. But without further ado, talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.